Hey, how's it going today? Today we're talking about feeling. Today we're talking about feeling like a fraud as a software developer. So we'll see how that goes. We're live streaming it, so I'll be taking questions. If you have any questions, just leave it in the chat below. So this is a topic that I find very interesting. It's something that we all go through. It's feeling like a fraud as a software developer. And the reason I'm saying is this, at any point in time in our careers, we have to learn a lot of stuff as a software developer. And sometimes that stuff is, sometimes we are definitely behind the curve on some of the things we have to learn. And it makes us feel like we're a fraud. And I actually have had this feeling every now and then. I'm pretty confident in my skills, but occasionally I feel like this is definitely something that I go through. So let me give you an example. The other day I created a video, and I've created almost 100 videos on lots of different programming topics. And I've also created almost 100 blog posts. I've created a lot of content in the last few years. And so I had this feeling, well, let me explain the story. So I created content just a few days ago on Vim, which is a text editor. It's pretty popular. It definitely has a geeky following out there. But so I created this tutorial on how to use Vim, and I created the 5 best plugins for Vim. And I posted it yesterday. Yesterday it was. And at the same time, I also posted it on this Reddit subforum called Reddit Vim. And on that forum, I posted the video to get feedback on it and also to get more traffic to the video itself. And it definitely was eye-opening because after I posted it, like a minute after I posted it, someone downvoted it, which I kind of expect on Reddit because they're very clicky, and it wasn't exactly the same topics that they usually have posted on that subreddit. But then I got some criticism of the video I posted, and some of it was positive, but there was some negative, and I got some trolls too. So I had people criticizing the video that I didn't go in depth in enough of the topics and enough of the plugins I was talking about. I got people that were criticizing me because I mentioned a plugin that is no longer actively maintained, and that there is a community plugin that supersedes it. And then some people just argue with me saying that the plugins that I chose on the video weren't the best. So it was kind of like a mismatch of just a little bit of criticism, quite a bit of criticism in this Vim subreddit that I didn't pick the right plugins that everybody liked. So it kind of made me think, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I know Vim. I've used it for years. I don't know everything about it. I'm certainly not an expert. And I did some research. I looked at a couple different websites that rank plugins. These plugins I mentioned are some of the most popular. They're also listed. I also use them. And the point of the video wasn't to do tutorials on each one of these plugins. The point of the video was just to give people an idea of what I thought the best plugins was. So and in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, maybe I am a fraud. Maybe I'm posting videos that people don't like, and that I should have done, more research and gone in depth on these plugins. But the matter of fact is that, that's not what's important. It's, important is I get to teach what I know to other people, and I know what I'm talking about. I did my research, and that instead of like arguing with those people or doing something like that, I really had two options. One is to ignore the feedback in the subreddit, or I could take that feedback and ignore the trolls and use it to make better videos in the future. So I kind of did that. I took their feedback. I created a description on the video on YouTube from yesterday. I added a comment, and I put in there some of their suggestions of the other plugins that was out there. So I think it's this common theme going back to feeling like a fraud. It's definitely something that we all go through at some point or another, and you just kind of have to keep moving forward. I know beginner developers have this quite often where they feel like they're beginning developers, they definitely feel like they are not a part of a community. A lot of times you get this imposter syndrome phrase thrown around a lot. A lot of start programmers that are just starting feel like they're like an imposter. I don't know if it technically fits for all circumstances. The definition of imposter syndrome is a concept describing, and this is from Wikipedia, is a concept describing high achieved individuals who are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. So I don't think that technically it always fits into a lot of people who are just starting out because they really don't have a lot of accomplishments. And so that is more just anxiety and being uncomfortable with the topic. So I think that doesn't necessarily always fit, but I can definitely empathize with people that just feel like when they're starting off that they feel like a fraud or they don't know what they're doing. And so I guess the next question would be, and also if you guys have any questions, just leave it in the chat window or say hi, please. The other questions I have people would say, well, what can you do to feel not like a fraud? So is there anything like you can do to stop that? And of course, I think joining a community of other programmers or developers where you can encourage each other, if it's not an online community, at least in person with other people, your friends, family, that can encourage you. So that way you know that you can continue on. Being able to really sit down. Hey, how's it going, man? Brilliant. Being able to just sit down and kind of just think over what you have accomplished and not let other people or other things influence you on how you think, and realize that you have a lot of self-worth, so you're definitely not a fraud. So using those support networks. So if you ever get to the point where you think that you are a fraud, that you kind of use these support networks to bolster you up, that really helps. So if you guys have any questions or comments, just leave it below. Hey, what's up, Mr. Gazooks? It's good to see you in the chat here today. So yeah, that's just a couple of things that I've seen with being a software developer and being a fraud. I think we all go through it at some point in time. You just have to realize that you have some value to give, and that it's kind of just like the back of your head trying to trick yourself. It kind of goes back to also limiting beliefs. We kind of all have these things in our life that we think we can and can't do, that either society has taught us or that we have put on ourselves. And especially when you're starting to learn to program or trying to become a developer, or going from like a junior developer to a senior developer, you may not realize that you can do and you can achieve those things. And definitely being able to push back those limiting beliefs so you can continue on is extremely important. What's up, Rishba? So I've been in the field for a year now. Sometimes it feels like a stagnant learning how to start contributing for a community. Yeah, it's definitely... I think I know what you're saying. So to join a community, never easy to join a new community. There was a great article that came about the other day. I think I can find it. I'll link it either in the description here, where this woman was talking about how she finally, after all these years, joined a developer boot camp, and she had always had this belief that she should be a part of that community, but she didn't feel very welcomed. And she took programming classes in high school, and she did really, really well. But then when she went to college, she didn't think it was the right fit, so she picked a different major. She didn't program at all. She was doing like journalism. And then she took one programming class in college, and she did really well. And then she spent 3 years, and then she realized she really liked programming. But she felt like the community of software developers, especially when she was going from high school to college, wasn't her community. So she couldn't really join it. And she felt she had some limiting beliefs. She definitely felt like she had an imposter syndrome. And that goes on to a much larger topic about women in tech. Women are woefully underrepresented in many tech fields, unfortunately, and that's kind of a larger conversation than we won't talk about today. But if you go to software developer, if you're like computer science student in university, you'll notice that the ratio of men and women are really bad. It's also bad for minorities, people of color. It's really a male, white dominated industry. And of course, it's at least here in the United States. I can't speak throughout the world, obviously, depending on the region, but it's definitely something where this should be a community that's inclusive, that takes all sorts of different people. So, Mr. Gazooks, when I am developing an application, I always involve the community that is being developed for. I get their input and design the app around that. It also feeds me for when I develop. Yeah, definitely having a community, like I was saying, is important. Contributing to open source communities is extremely a good way to kind of break some barriers. It's really, for a junior or beginner developer, it can be very intimidating to go out there and try to contribute to these open source projects, because you're dealing with maintainers that may or may not allow you to put your code in. They might have strict guidelines. It's kind of, every project out there has different contribution guidelines. But if you can join a cause, find a open source YouTube program that you really, really like, and at least just start on the documentation of it, that can really be good, because you can start learning, start meeting these maintainers, join their Slack channels or their GitHubs are, and try to get involved with them. Absolutely. So, Rishba, I am a React developer and now want to start contributing on Git, but don't know where to start from. Yeah, so the easiest way to start is especially with some of the more popular open source projects out there, you can find them on GitHub and other places, of course. And if you kind of search around a little bit, you should find the contributor guidelines. And I've done this before. And usually they have tags on Git. I would show you, but I don't have. Maybe the next one I'll make a video on this. But usually you can look at their issues list, and they'll have tags for good for beginners or good for new people or something like that. And you can check those to see if you can contribute that way. And then if they have any sort of documentation, usually that's like a good place to start to do documentation, because there's always better ways out there. There's always communities looking for people to write up documentation. And if you're not, you can also create your own tutorials and blog posts and help out the community that way. Yeah, and you can learn a lot definitely from that. So I'm going to look here. It's a couple more questions. Sometimes it feels like there is, say, hey, what's up, guys? Hellhedjup. Sometimes it feels like there's a new technology every month and it's very hard to follow, but how can we upgrade ourselves without losing any time in searching what's good to learn or not? Yeah, so that is a problem with software in general, especially the JavaScript community. There is a lot of stuff happening, from new front-end frameworks to front-end frameworks to now we have, of course, back-end frameworks. Then we have lots of new libraries coming out. There's new linters. There's new ways. TypeScript is really big right now. Everybody's talking about TypeScript and static typing. So it's really hard to kind of figure out what to work on or learn. But I would suggest you find out what your goal is. So if you're trying to get a job, of course, look at the technologies that they're asking for in the fields that you're looking for, and maybe focus on those. If you're just generally trying to learn in general, I suppose, you probably want to start at the most popular things that interest you. So you may want to spend an afternoon just trying out these different frameworks, trying out transpiling, trying out CSS, trying out Sass. Maybe you never written anything in Sass before. Just trying to just play around with these different technologies and see what interests you the most. I mean, it's really hard to say. Like, you can go through and look at the trends. Like, you can open up Google Trends and put in the technologies you're interested in to see which ones are more popular than others, I suppose. But it just really comes down to what your goal is and what you're trying to do. So I think it's natural what you feel. So if you're an experienced developer and sometimes you cannot catch the community. Yep, so yeah, don't beat yourself up over a lot of these things. So I'm going to end it here. It's been about 15 minutes. I hope you guys got a little taste. I'm going to try to do these about once a week, so probably on Fridays. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button and take care.